everybody's new here. I was gonna welcome myself, but everybody knows me. So welcome back to 1829. I actually want to pray first. This is mainly for me, but I want you guys to pray with me because it's the first time I've been here, sharing my story with God, with you guys, and kind of nerve-wracking, but I know God will speak with me. I just want to pray. So if you guys bow your heads, close your eyes. Dear Father, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be in the room with these amazing people, putting 1829 in my way. I pray that you bless everybody in this room, and thank you for helping me actually see the true picture. I pray that you speak through me and you open everybody's eyes so they can see who you are and follow you wholeheartedly. I pray this message opens up somebody's eyes. You know, that's all I've ever really wanted. Not knowing why I go through things in life, but little by little now noticing it's for your purpose. So I pray you help me share your purpose through this message. Amen.
Amen.
All right. So I started Catholic. I was born Catholic religion. Catechism, Holy Communion, all of that was moving too much. Okay. But I actually really started to see God when I came here to 1829. That's why I wanted to thank everybody. I knew God in the past, being Catholic, but I never really knew him. I knew he was real, but I never really prayed to him. Seeing him working through my life, if I ever felt like he was working through my life. But after coming here, it really actually got my eyes open to why I took paths in my life and why God put me in certain situations, knowing that I didn't even really know him, And I always had this voice, everybody has that voice, your conscience. Some people call it your Holy Spirit, talking to you, God talking through people to you. And I never really listened to that voice. My mom would call, hey, don't go out tonight. Something's gonna happen. God would speak through her to help me. And I felt like at that moment, now that I see it, I would just be like, take a little cut and not really do it till an hour later, 2 hours later. I end up with my hands behind my back in a jail cell, and that happened multiple times with my cousin calling me from San Antonio saying she's worried not to go out. 10 minutes later, I'm calling her from a prison cell. She knows I'm there. Little things like that that I really didn't look into, I always saw it as, me making my mistakes. I never really judged God. I never really blamed him at the time or asked why, because I felt like I made those decisions myself. I always felt it was me making those decisions. But I guess it's tough times like that that really make you realize how much you need faith. Miranda had been talking about 2 weeks ago, and she had talked about clay, something about clay with God. And when I was locked up, I had read a book called Why God Allows Pain. And he started talking about clay. If you see God as the ultimate sculptor, when you form clay, you gotta beat the imperfections out of it. You gotta beat the air bubbles, because if you throw it in the heat, once it gets too hot, you crack, you break under pressure. And I started noticing God doesn't want you to crack under pressure. God wants you to stay strong and not break. So that's what it really got in my head. I was just, taking the punches, going through it, seeing where God wanted to work through my life. And it was crazy because even at those times when I'm just at rock bottom, I would pray to God, I'd talk to him, but I really didn't know him still. It's something, at the time, it was just something to do. You don't have anybody, and I feel that's why people really find God when they go to prison, because you're at your lowest at your low, and you feel so alone so isolated that the only person you have is God. No one's there for you. And when you're in there, that's what you start to realize, God's there for you. And now that I realize it, I start like noticing where he was there when it came from, like being homeless at 15, living in my car, doing drugs, being addicted to all of them, selling drugs, stuff like that. It really took a toll. Ironically, somebody would come up and, they'd help out. Or I'd find my cousin at Walmart while I'm sleeping on the couch. And, she'd bring me into her home for a year and a half. And I really didn't see that as God's work. I just saw that as me getting lucky. And it really happened, the first time where it really like hit me is when I caught my main charge. I was looking at 15 years in prison for selling drugs to an undercover. And that was really hard on me. That took a toll. But the beautiful thing about it was when I went to go see my lawyer, I walked in to go see my lawyer, and he looks at me, imagine me all tatted up, dressed all baggy. I've got an attitude. And I walk up to my lawyer, and he's just like, "What are you doing here, man?" And all attitudes, "What do you mean, what am I doing here? I have an appointment, bro." But then he looks at me calm, knowing, he tells me, "No, what are you doing here? I see God in you. I feel God's presence with you, and I know you can do great things. But apparently right now, this is one of those moments where God needs to show you that he's there." So he told me, because he saw God in me, and he shared some stories with me about his daughter having cancer and all that, really made me tear up. He told me he was going to help me through everything for free at that point for free. So I got that first charge, and it's times like that that really make you remember, like, to stay in faith. Even when you don't know God, even when you're barely trying to figure out who he is, just my lawyer telling me, that he sees God in me is the moment to like actually sit there and be like, hey, you know what? If he sees God in me, why can't I see God in me? And that's how it really affected me. Putting my faith in somebody I really didn't feel confident about. But after a while, you start getting that pain, and it turns into faith. You go around and people see you, but they don't see like the true pain. They don't see the hurt. They don't see the loneliness, the anguish that you go through. When you're there in your room crying on your knees, praying, asking why. Nobody sees that, but God's always there to see all of that. He hears it, and if you speak, he's there for you. Mm-hmm. And I really didn't see it at that point. And if you go to like Romans 8:29, let me get out of your way here. It's 8:28 to 8:29. And it says, "And we know that God causes everything to work together for the purpose of good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose. For God knew his purpose in advance." That's the word that I like, in advance. He chose them to become like his son, so that his son would be the firstborn among many brothers and sisters. In the King James Version, or in other Bibles, where I read it through mine, I liked that it said he foreknew. And when I read foreknew, I always thought, like your future. He knows. Watch, it's not in this one. Okay, right here. This is another version that says, "For those whom he foreknew, he also predestined." Foreknew and predestined. So as soon as you were born, he knew. I'm here sitting on my knees crying, asking God why. And if you go back to passage, like, he already knows you're going to go through that. He already knows that I was going to make the decision. He already knew that I was gonna choose to do something bad, and he got in somebody's spirit. He got to somebody to try to keep me from it. I did wrong, but he still turned it out for good. It's just predestined. And I wish it was just as easy as that one moment, falling to your knees, crying, praying to God, asking him to fix everything that you just went through 15 years, and then boom, it's gone. You're straight. I wish it worked like that. But now that I think about it, I'm glad it doesn't. Because then you get to really actually see the true purpose that it goes through. It ended up getting a little worse because that's when I caught my second charge, which was not too long after my first charge. And they charged me with evading arrest on a motor vehicle. So that's another felony. They gave me 20 years for that one. So that's when I truly felt hitting rock bottom was rock bottom. Because a 17-year-old looking at 35 years in prison isn't something really exciting to look up to, And that's when I really started to try to listen. Because that second time that I went to go talk to my lawyer, and he didn't get mad, he didn't, all he told me was, apparently you haven't hit rock bottom. He's like, God hasn't scared you enough to bring your faith out, to show you that he's there, but I'm still gonna do everything I can to show you that I have faith in you. So you should have faith in yourself, So he really tried to help me out, and right there, 35 years, thank God, he brought it down. He brought it down a lot from 35, 25, 15, 10, all the way down to 2 years. Looking at manslaughter, possession of methamphetamines, manufacturing, distribution, evading arrest, dropping a 35-year sentence down to 2 years just because your pastor sees God in you and he knows you're meant for greater things. That was just one of the best blessings that I'd ever seen, It was 2 years or 10 years probation. And nobody wants to go to jail, So I took the 10 years probation, and from there it just started a whole new cycle of getting into drugs. I started doing meth, started smoking again, going all out, just because I felt, I knew God helped me, but since I still really didn't see him working just for that one moment, I just went into a cycle of just depression, drinking at home, staying at home, isolating myself. And that happened for about 5 years on probation. And it came to one point, it's crazy, I don't know why God would let this go through my head, but who randomly thinks after 5 years of probation, hey, let's just go to prison? That's insane to me that would actually go through my head. And tell my mom, and she's just like, no. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go to prison. I'm gonna do it. But the thing about that is it's crazy how God chooses the place of your most discomfort to give you your greatest revelation. Because when I went to prison, I'm gonna share with you guys a couple stories that happened to where, because of what my lawyer shared with me and the choice that I made to go in faithfully, really started to open my eyes. I went in, they started dropping it down. I ended up having to do a year and 2 months instead of 2 years. But when I was getting transferred, it was crazy. I was getting transferred to state prison downstate, and I was gonna take the 2 years instead of parole. And as soon as you're about to get transferred, they cut off your cell phone, so you can't make any calls. I got to the jail. I called my mom. She told me to take probation or take parole. I said, no, I'm not going to take it. She said, call your sister. Your sister misses you. She wants you to take parole. Take it. And I told her, no, I'm not going to take it. I'm going to do my time. I'm going to get it over with. But I called my sister anyways, and I said, hey, whatever you want me to do, I'll do. Because if anybody got me out of jail, it was her. I could have told her a million times, don't get me out. Don't spend the money. And here she was, always bailing me out. She was always there. And her opinion was the one that I was going to go off of. You know, whatever she said is what I was going to do. And she told me to take probation. She was like, 1.5 years on probation is better than 2 years in prison. You know, I saved myself 3 years. And I said, okay. I took the years, I took the parole. I hung up the phone and I went up to call my mom. As soon as I went up the phone to call my mom, the phone just disconnected. You know, I got the opportunity to talk to my mom, talk to my sister, figure out what I was gonna do, and then go off and disappear. But I actually got the opportunity, you know, to say my final words to them before I wouldn't talk to them for a whole 1.5 years. That was a big blessing, you know. And from there, you know, I was in there. I was getting transferred to one of the worst prisons in Texas. And on my way to the prison cell, on my way to the prison, I'm there shackled up in the bus, praying to God, hoping that He puts me in a good spot, hoping that He keeps me out of trouble, hopes me that I stay out of gangs. And I end up going to the prison. You have to meet the warden as soon as you go in. So I meet the warden, and he wants me to work. He wants everybody to work. So he's like, "What can you do?" I was like, "I can do laundry. I know how to wash clothes." And he's like, "Oh, can you cook?" And I was just like, "I can do laundry. I can do laundry. I don't want to cook, but I can do laundry." And for some reason, he just looks at me and he just goes, "No, you can't work." That stumped me also. I was like, "What? I can't work?" His secretary's like, "Yeah, you can." No, he can't work. He can't work. We'll find a place for you. I'll find a place for you, he tells me. Right there, I was scared. You know, when the warden tells you he's going to find a place for you, not always a good sign, you know? And he gives me a little paper. That little paper tells you where your dorm's at. So I walk to my dorm, and there's a big window, and I look at the window, pitch black, but I stick my head in. And I see a crowd of maybe as much as you guys, just with their hands up, worshiping, praying, a big old picture of Jesus in the back, and it says Faith Pod around the side. He ended up putting me in a position that I prayed for. You know, this is somewhere where it was going to keep me safe, and he had no idea about it. You know, God was the only one who knew about it, and he put me in that position. You know, that's when I really started to grow my faith, seeing what he did there, and I mean, being in a room 24/7 for like 6 months with somebody who believes in God, everybody who believes in God, it really helps you learn who God is. You know, so I came out, my mom got sick, had a stroke, ended up having cancer, liver cancer. Stayed strong, never gave up faith, never questioned God. You know, my favorite book was the book of Job. So right there, I reminded myself, never give up. You know, always stay strong. And whatever he did with my mom, you know, that was his choice. And we go to see the doctor, and the doctor says that the tumor is gone. From 1 minute to the next, the same doctor that saw the tumor said it was gone. You know, that was just like the cherry on top. You know, coming out, staying strong, being in faith. And I went through a little rough patch here and there. You know, got back on drugs. Got out of them now. But once you sit there and you really look back at it, some people call it a coincidence. Some people call it God. But I mean, is it a coincidence that out of all my friends, everybody that I hung out with, I was the one who took the deepest hit? Mm. Is it a coincidence that I was on my knees praying for God to change something, only to finally start realizing how good it was for me that I actually went through that? Was it a coincidence that when I talked to my lawyer and he told me he saw God in me, that he was a pastor himself, and he made it his priority, his God-willing priority, to fix my life and change my life? Was it a coincidence that they brought it from 35 years to 2 years? Or that I chose to go to prison? That trips me out. You know, is it a coincidence that I made the decision to go to prison? And that moment was the moment that was going to change my life? That I got that last phone call, was that a coincidence? Or that I prayed for a safe passage and God granted it to me? You know? And that's where I look back at Romans 8:29, because I feel like, is it a coincidence? Or is it God who foreknew? You know, He predestined my future, and He knew that I had to be hit like clay, that I had to be taught these things and go through these things to be conformed. Conformed is you become. You know, I had to become the person who I was. I wasn't just that person already. He picked me, He picked us, and He conformed us, He conformed me to be in His image, to be in the image of God, to be the first generation Christian in my family, to stop the cycle of addiction. You know, was it a coincidence, or was it God being there through all of it, knowing everything I had to go through to actually make a difference in my life and be in right standing with God?